Hey, it's Amber here, and today I am working on some of these library card pockets that I have made for a bunch of my vintage journals. And I had a couple comments asking about these. So I thought I need to make a bunch more. So I just thought I'd do like a craft with me. So if you are crafting along with me, that's great. Or if you just want to kind of zone out while I make several of these library card pockets, I'm going to be making a batch of these today. And I mean, these are kind of all over the place. I don't think I have anything necessarily new to say about how to make these. I'm just going to show you what I have been doing to make these. I did buy this stamp on an Etsy shop, and I don't even remember what Etsy shop I did buy it from. It's not the best stamp. I think it's made because some of the letters don't show up all the way, but I think it's made to be a little vintage, or made to look vintage because like it looks like it's I don't know, like old, and the letters don't stamp all the way, and that's kind of fine with me. But the main reason I don't like it is because it's a block and I can't see through it when I stamp, and because it's all lines, it has to be really even. And so I went ahead and stamped a bunch on a legal sized manila envelope here, and I dropped it. I don't know if you can see that mistake, but that's okay. It kind of like, again, I kind of like that it's a little scuffed up and roughed up. But I learned the hard way to not cut these out first and then stamp, to stamp first and then cut out. So, if you are going to make these library cards, make sure you stamp onto this, either a cardstock. I use these manila envelopes because I just have a bunch of these that I can use to get rid of them. And then the pockets are made also from the manila envelopes. And I use a template that I just continue to trace over and over and over again. And I'm going to give you the dimensions of this, just in case you are, let me make sure that, yeah, we are in screen. So the dimensions that I have, and you can make these bigger or smaller, are about a little over 3.5 for this top portion, and this middle portion is a little bit over 4.5, and then the length here is almost 8 inches, and then this part is 3.25 inches, and then it ends up looking like this. So when I make these, I trace them out on the manila envelope, and actually I'm gonna just do another couple of these while I've got this out right now. And I just go ahead and line it up with the edge of something already so that I know it's gonna be straight. So I'll line it up with this top edge up here. Is that all lined up? Can line it up here and on this edge. I like having these library cards because I was a library kid when I was a kid. My mom took us to the library really frequently, and I found it very exciting as a kid to write my name on the library card. something about that felt significant to me, like I was making a mark on something, because I would go back later and see my name in there still. So something about that just felt, I don't know, I felt important in some way. Just gonna see if, yeah, so I'm just checking to see if I could make a card out of this portion, and I can't because it's not long enough, but if I moved this down, I could. So that's what I'm gonna do. I don't know if you can see what I'm trying to do here, but if I cut this out correctly, I could use this portion here to make more of these cards. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to erase this and move this whole thing down. I mean, I don't know why I'm being stingy about these manila envelopes, because I literally have, I pick them up at thrift stores when I find them, especially the legal sized ones, because you get so much bang for your buck with them. And I use them to make journaling cards and to back a lot of, I use them as backing quite a bit for various things. Oops. So we shall see if I am able to adequately stamp this and not make a mess of it, but I think it might be worth saving. And then what I do to make more of them at the same time is cut through two sides at the same time. So I'll get 2 of these right now. I grew up in the 80s, and my favorite books to read growing up were the Boxcar Children books. And we would go to the library, various libraries I grew up in San Diego. So there were several like suburbs that we would kind of do a rotation of to go to the libraries in those suburbs. And I'd always hope to find new, other versions of other copies of the Boxcar Children that I hadn't read yet. And sometimes we would request them from other branches of the library to come in, but I probably read, I don't know, most if not all of them. And I also read all the Nancy Drews, most if not all of them. And I have a bunch of Boxcar Children and Nancy Drew books that I've collected over the years in thrift stores, or over the past, I don't know, year since I've started collecting things for junk journals. And I'm really excited about doing something with those. I had loved the Boxcar Children so much. I loved this idea of these, like, I don't know, these kids living on their own out in the woods, making this boxcar their house and finding found items to kind of turn into livable, I remember this whole time when they found these broken bits of plates and teacups, and they would use those, and they would keep their food cool in a little area in the stream. And I just thought it was all so, it was like, our version of Survivor. I was just like, I want to do that so bad. And we lived in an area of San Diego that had these hills behind us that were not unpopulated. And I remember begging my mom to let me and my brother go live for a week out there by ourselves to see if we could make it. And she said no. And I was devastated because I just wanted to be like Boxcar Children so bad. She did offer to let us just camp in the backyard. And I don't remember if we took her up on that or not. We did camp in the backyard many times, so maybe we did. But I wanted the struggle, man. I wanted to feel the struggle. So I think I didn't trim off the tops of these other ones, but I'm going to leave it on and see if I like it with a little bit of a taller end. We'll see how that looks here in a minute. So here are the pieces that were left over. And I actually like these little tabs on the top that these create for the library card. I think it looks kind of cool to have it like that, but you could trim them straight across if you'd like. But now we're up against that problem of, am I going to be able to stamp these accurately? But we will get to the stamping of the cards in a minute. Right now we're going to work on the pockets. I also loved Nancy Drew because, again, it was this like kind of independent teenager who was going around solving mysteries. Okay, before I talk more about Nancy Drew, I'm just going to explain what I'm doing here. I'm just going to use this, what is this called? I don't even know what this is called, but it creates the grooves for you. I know there's a term for it. Why is it like slipping my mind? This is not necessary. You don't need to have this. If you don't, you could just bend it over some other straight edge, but I just use it to make it a little bit easier for me to do these folds. Not a beveler. What is it called? It's gonna drive me crazy. Do you hate it when words escape your brain like that? Ugh, it's not coming to me. Yeah, but Nancy Drew, I never felt like I was, with the Boxcar Children, they felt a little more relatable to me. I don't know. There were many characters that were, they all had like different sets of skills, or they were younger kids. The oldest boy, I think his name was Henry. And then there was like the next oldest daughter. And I didn't feel as intimidated by them, but Nancy Drew felt a little, they always talked about how pretty she was, and I never felt like I was pretty as a kid. So I didn't really identify as much with her. But I still loved how, I still love a good mystery. Like, one of my favorite genres of anything is mystery. Mystery movies, mystery novels. So I think it was just ticking that box for me when I was a kid. But I have since re-looked at some of those books and read some of it. And they always commented on how Nancy Drew's best friend, there was Georgie and Bess, and they always talked about Bess's weight. Always. It was like they just couldn't, like her whole character arc was that she was kind of chubby. So there's obviously fat phobia in these books that were written in the 50s and the 60s. Okay, so for before you glue, so I'm talking about fat phobia Nancy Drew books and not really going through what I'm doing here, but I hope it's pretty obvious that you just fold up here, and then we're gonna tuck these around the edge. But before you fold and glue, if you're gonna do any yellowing or distressing, do this now. Again, it's something I've learned the hard way. And I got these free. Somebody gave these to me on like a Facebook Buy Nothing group. So this is Buttercup Winter from the Close to Me. What does it say? Close to Me something. Exclusive inks. I can't see the brand. But I like it because it gives it sort of a yellowed page library, and these are kind of old, so I don't have a lot of ink in them left. But it makes it look a little bit more like yellowed book pages to me than this Distress Oxide Vintage photo that I have. But sometimes I'll just take the edge and darken up the edge just a touch with that to create a more distinct line. But I love how that yellows that. Doesn't that look perfectly aged? Shadows happening here. My lighting setup isn't the best. Oh, I don't have my overhead light on. That's probably part of the problem here. After I kind of make sure these are gonna stay down, I'm gonna go turn on that overhead light. And that should help things. Maybe a touch. Okay, so then we get the corner rounder, pop those corners off, and then we're gonna do some more inking. I'll start with, well, I did it anyway. Normally I start with the yellow, but we'll just kind of get this edge dark with the vintage photo ink, and then I'll go in with the yellow. Did your school growing up have a full-time librarian? I don't even know if schools now have a full-time librarian, like at their public schools, or if that is sort of like one of the things that has gone away. I sure hope not. It seems like with all the school book banning and all the garbage, it seems like there would not be a lot of effort placed on ensuring that that is a position that stays in place. Okay, one of our pockets done. I grew up I went to a private school. My parents were very, very religious, are very religious, and placed me in a private religious school. And I don't believe we had a full-time librarian at our school, but we did have library days where we could go to the library. But our library was really small and really didn't have very much in it. That's why I loved the public library. I need to ask my son. My son he doesn't go to a traditional school. He goes to a public school, but he goes to an alternative school within the public school system because he is neurodivergent and doesn't really do well in a comprehensive school setting. It's all too overstimulating. And it's too boring. Like it runs too slow. It's like way too many people, way too many sounds. And it also, he's really, really bright. And so I just don't think the environment goes at a pace that is stimulating enough for him. It's like both understimulating and overstimulating. It's like the worst combo for an ADHD autistic gifted kiddo. So I don't know if his school even has a library, But when he was at a traditional school setting, I'm wondering if they had a librarian there. I wasn't the type of kid in high school who was like the library kid who hung out in the library at lunch and stuff like that. I'm really, really glad that that is an option. I know that so many of the clients that I work with in my therapy practice, like, loved their school librarians and found such refuge in the library. And that's where their friends were. It was like quiet, calm, soothing, and they could like not have to interact with people if they didn't want to. I was very, very, very outgoing in high school. I tend to be more extroverted than introverted, although that's changed a lot as I've gotten older. Way more introverted than I used to be. But I wanted to be out where everyone else was, hanging out. And I was always in trouble for making too much noise. I could not, I was a loud kid. I had a hard time like regulating my voice. I would get in trouble all the time in my classes for talking too much. Like it was always like, pleasure to have in class, talks too much. But fortunately, teachers, they liked me. Like I wasn't a difficult kid. I was just a little, almost forgot. I was just very, very social. Probably bored. This is a good example of sometimes, I don't know if you can see this. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Sometimes this will like crawl over the end of the page of the book. Of the pocket, and so you'll need to trim it. And one thing that can solve that problem, I've seen people make these on other videos, and they just round those corners with their corner rounder like this. And that solves that problem, and it makes it really nice looking in the back, if you can see. So if you're making these and you're not going to glue them into your book, like I have mine glued into my books, so you can't see the back, but if you're going to have a loose pocket, like if you're going to put this, I don't know, into a tuck spot in your journal, but you're going to want to be able to see the back of it, maybe rounding the corners is the way. I'll do it on another one just so you can see the difference. Well, I guess you can see the difference here. I think it just looks a little cuter. Did I? Yes. It's weird when I think about how much I have changed since I was in high school. I know that, I mean, I'm 47. Of course I've changed. But like personality-wise, really dramatic. Like I've done some pretty dramatic changes, especially in the last few years. And I think I'm not alone in that. I know that COVID did a number on a lot of us, and I think we're all sort of recovering from that in many ways. But my capacity to be in public and around a lot of people is really diminished. I used to just love being in large crowds and with a lot of people, and like kind of was always the center of attention, life of the party. And now I'm just like, I'm gonna not go do things. So So I don't really know. That's just been I know I'm not alone in that. I hear that that is a very frequent. I'm not sure if I like it taller. I know that's a frequent observation of social psychologists. That they are making. No, I'm not into it. So I know I'm either part of a kind of a trend that's happened, like an interesting social trend, or I am just learning more about my own potential neurodiversity and honoring that more and doing less masking. Than I used to do. You know, it's just an interesting place of self-discovery that I think a lot of us are in. Especially when I say a lot of us, I mean women, people who've been socialized as female. And then also as a therapist in the mental health world, we're really, really learning a lot more about neurodiversity, autism, ADHD, and how this shows up in people and how we have really excluded so many people from that diagnosis because it was really only studied ever in men and in boys and children. And so we didn't really know what autism and ADHD looked like in girls. It's very, very different. Can be very different. And so we're in a really big place of discovery as we listen more, as the mental health community and the profession listens to women, listens to autistic people and ADHD people, and learn from them about what that experience is like, as opposed to, as from a more internal, as they describe what it is like to live and be autistic from a more internalized perspective, as opposed to a bunch of neurotypical people looking at them from the outside and describing their behavior and pathologizing it. We are learning a lot more, and I'm very grateful for that. But in that process, it's made me wonder, oh, a lot of the things that these people are describing sound very, very familiar to me. Huh. And so I've been in my own, and my son is autistic and ADHD, pretty clear to me that my father is autistic. My brother and I are both therapists, and several years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, we both had a conversation together, and we're like, do you think Dad is, at the time we were still using the terms Asperger's syndrome, which is no longer a term that we use, but it we were already sort of wondering about that for our dad. And it would make a lot of sense of who he is. So, genetically speaking is what I'm saying. There's, a strong possibility. And the more I kind of consider my other extended family members, there's a strong neurospicy element to our family. My brother, who I just described as dyslexic, my niece is ADHD. So the likelihood of just me, all of that missing me genetically is pretty low. And I think one of the things that's interesting about how a lot of folks experience their neurodiversity is around focused interests or special interests. And I have had many different focused interests over the years that I get really kind of obsessed with for short periods of time and then fall out of interest with. So is my brother. It's always kind of been a joke in my family. But I think the strong focused interest I have always had that I've not lost interest in has been my interest in humans, and psychology and spirituality. Well, it was focused through spirituality because, again, I was raised in the church, in a church environment and religious environment. So that was where my like understanding of humans came from, was through this religious, rather cult-like experience lens. But after I left the church, I got very interested in human psychology, obviously, and became a therapist. But I also get down crafty rabbit holes and become like very, very good at whatever I decide to do and then get very bored with it. So I don't know how long I'll be interested in junk journals is what I'm saying. I already went through like a phase a while back, about 3 or 4 months ago, where I was like, I cannot look at anything ever again junk journal related. I'm so over it. Like, I unfollowed a bunch of Facebook groups because I was just like, ugh. So I'm so annoyed with it and bored with it. But I've learned to just, when that happens, to not throw everything away. In the past, when I've gotten into like knitting or crocheting or sewing or some other craft project, I'll get really excited about it for a while and make 1,000 things, and then I get kind of disgusted by it. It's very weird. And then I'll just throw all of the like craft supplies out or give them away because I'm just like, I never want to see that again. But I've learned that over time I generally come back to it, and then I'm kind of bummed that I impulsively threw everything away. So I didn't do that this time. I didn't do that. I just took a break from it. I just said, you know what? You don't have to keep working on that. Just put it to the side. Let it go. You might become interested in it again later. You might not. No big deal. No judgment. Just observe. It's okay. And a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week or 2 ago, I found myself sitting here ready to do it again. And I think there's something fun about junk journaling that ticks a lot of my boxes craft-wise, and why I think maybe I'll be able to stay a little more interested in it than some of the other hobbies, is because there's so many different elements to it that make it fun. Like the bookbinding piece, the thrift store hunting piece, stamping, embossing, collaging, you know, even like making homemade paper. Like, I might not feel like doing any bookbinding, you know, or journaling, like crafting this stuff, but I might want to make paper that day or dye paper. So it feels like there's a lot of ways to not get bored. Like, I don't think I'll get as bored because there's so many ways to engage with the same craft. And I like that. Some days it's just like, you know what, I don't want to sit still. I kind of want to be out and about. So I'm going to go find an estate sale and see if I can find some cool, weird stuff to put into my journals. And then there's other days where I'm like, I do not want to go outside of my house, period, the end. I don't want to put on pants or a bra. I don't want to interact with humans. But I do feel like figuring out, making some tags or collating some pages for a new journal, or printing out some printables. So I don't know if you noticed, but on this last one, I went ahead and rounded those back corners. So it has that kind of it's just a very slight adjustment, but I think it aesthetically is different if you are going to be placing this into your journal loosely. And then I think I'm done with the oh, whoopsie. How are we doing up here on the video? Okay, all right. I need to get a microphone, but I feel a little confused about iPhone microphones. So if anybody out there knows how to get a microphone for your iPhone that doesn't have, like my iPhone doesn't have, it's an iPhone 10, so I don't have like a plug to put headphones or like a microphone thing into. I think it's supposed to go in the charger. I just feel a little overwhelmed by when I go to research that. It just feels like there's too many options and none of them are the right one. So if you guys, any of you know, if any of you out there are also using your iPhones to make your YouTube videos or any other social media videos, and you know of a microphone that is a reasonably priced one, I would love that. Because I know that my phone's pretty far away from me. It's like 6 inches above my head, and I'm talking down. And then if I stand up to adjust the camera, my voice gets a lot louder. So I'd like to avoid that. Okay, so we just made 6 cards, or 6 pockets. So now we need to make 6 cards. This one is one I pulled out of one of my journals over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that back over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So now I just need to cut these out. I'm gonna use these bigger scissors just to get this off of here. So I'm gonna cut these up. Actually, I think, yeah, I'm just a little worried about not making, these are not going to be the final cuts, but I'm just a little worried about freehanding anything with scissors. I have a neurological disorder in my right hand that it's called dystonia. And it causes a tremor and some muscle weakness and cramping. I just don't have a lot of control in my right hand, and that's my dominant hand. So some of this stuff can be a little tricky sometimes because of that. Okay, so I'm gonna use that base cut that I just did across there as my guide for all the other edges. I think that looks fine. You see though how like the word borrower is very hard to see, and like let me zoom in on this stamp. And I think it's intentional. I think it's made to look this way, to look like it's an old stamp that has been used 1,000 times and is wearing down, which doesn't really bug me that badly, but sometimes I'm like, I wish it was a little clearer. And I've looked in the stamp and it actually is that way. Like it's not user error, okay? I'm gonna defend my crafting skills after I just tell you I have a neurological disorder in my hand that makes it hard for me to do some things. But it's not me. It's not me. think we're good on this side. I think I'm gonna trim it up a little bit though. How many of you grew up with the Dewey Decimal System? Is that even something? I mean, if I have other Gen Zers in the house, I am on the very cuspy end of being Gen Z. I was born in 1976, so I am like according. Okay. This is one that was not stamped straight. Okay, let me see if I can fix that. There's a little bit of a whoop in there. Let's see if we can, let's see. How much is that gonna bug me? I think we got it. Okay, it's just gonna be right up to the edge on there. I'm technically a Gen Zer, but because I was raised in a very religious home, I don't have a lot of the traits of a Gen Z, a typical Gen Z family. Like my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was in a lot of ways more like a that's gonna bug. In a lot of ways, so I'm gonna show you the difference here between having like this tag on the top, and I had to take that one off because I stamped it kind of wonky. So you can kind of see the difference of just having a plain one versus one that has a little bit of a tag on the top. Anyway, so she was a little bit more like a mom from the 50s, you know, in the 80s, where she stayed at home and like literally made my lunch every morning before I went to school. And we were not latchkey kids. We were very, in a lot of ways, over monitored. And so I don't have a lot of that sort of Gen Z stuff of feeling invisible and neglected. But I do have other traits of it that I'm not, anyway, I'm not going to go into all that. But all that to say that, oh, why was I talking about that? I don't remember why I started talking about that. I think I asked, anyway, wow. Obviously I have Gen Z, almost 50-year-old brain where I can't remember my own train of thought. Okay, so I'm gonna try to stamp. This is not, I bought this stamp, or I think I had this. I don't remember where I got this, but it's not an appropriate, it's my only black stamp pad, and I'm just too cheap to buy a new one. But it's like set down, so I can't, it's hard to get the ink on this pad. So I kind of have to do some weird things to get it on there. Okay, here we go. Let's see how well we do here. I don't even know how to do this. I'm gonna try. I can already tell it's crooked. I mean, not terrible. Not terrible. It'll do. The authentic library book stamps card, the book cards. What are they called? Borrowing cards? Library cards. Nope. Library cards are what the person has in order to have. What are these actually called, I wonder? Oh, well. Dang it. That was my neurological. That was my neurological fun showing up there for you. Okay. That's probably a terrible sound on the camera. Sorry about that. Okay, we are going to make one more, cut one more out. Actually, we will print first. What have we learned? We have learned to stamp first. And I'm just gonna get a little more ink because I don't know what part of the stamp fell. There we go. What's really interesting about my whole family has a bunch of weird neurological problems. For instance, I'm also an epileptic. I have epilepsy, but nobody else in my family has epilepsy. But 2 of my family members have MS. And I have this tremor that is not MS related. And then my son and my sister-in-law also have a tremor in their hand that are not MS related. And it's like we all have separate neurological things that should look and be connected but are not. It's very bizarre. Like my sister-in-law and I obviously are not even genetically related. She's married to my brother, but she and my son have the same neurological tremor in their hand. I think that's also bonkers. You're getting the tea on my family today. Okay. We have cards, folks. Whatever these cards are called. If somebody knows the name of these, they're not library cards. Because library cards, again, are what you get to be able to rent the books out. But these are in library card pockets. I don't know what they're called. And then I'm just going to distress these. Yellow these up. And this is obviously a pretty boring video for you to watch. It's just me inking the edges of these. But I also know that for sometimes it can be soothing to watch somebody do something sort of repetitive. And listen to them talk about their family's medical history. I wonder why I'm not a famous YouTuber, you know? I don't know why this isn't getting shared by everyone. Come and listen to this woman talk about her family's medical history and ink the edges of library cards / whatever these are called. Honestly, the last thing I want to be is YouTube famous. That feels very stressful. I do actually have a very large following on TikTok. But that is a non-craft related. That is a non-craft related channel, and I talk a lot about all things therapy and mental health related on my TikTok. And you're welcome to go follow me there if you're interested in any of the things I've been talking about. Not necessarily my family. But you can find me on TikTok, and it's Amber Rice, LMFT. That's my name on there. I talk a lot about misogyny and other various systems of oppression and how that operates in our relationships. And talk a lot about internalized misogyny in women. I talk about how misogyny shows up between couples in their marriages and partnerships, especially misogyny coming from cisgender heterosexual men in heteronormative relationships. Talk about conflict resolution. I talk about trauma. I'm a trauma specialist. So I talk a lot about how trauma impacts us. I talk about how to talk a lot about eating disorder and fat liberation, because I am a fat liberation activist, which means that I work to address the systemic issues that face people in larger bodies, and talk a lot about fat phobia and anti-fat bias in our culture and how that harms all of us, not just people in large bodies. Harms every single one of us, that we're all so terrified of gaining weight. So if any of those topics interest you, I don't mind being in a public platform about those things. I feel a little more nervous about being on a public platform for crafting. Isn't that weird? Maybe I'll need to explore that with my own therapist. I think because this feels kind of silly or something. Maybe I just feel a little more private about my hobbies. I don't feel private about my ideas. Yeah, I think that's it. Like, I'd kind of be horrified if anyone I knew was watching this and saw me. I don't mind if strangers see this. So if you know me and you're watching this and you've become a subscriber on my channel, don't tell me, please. I might need a new yellowish stamp pad. I think that there's probably some good kind of this color of whatever this brand is, Distress Oxide. Really try not to buy stamp supplies or junk journaling supplies. I try to get them all secondhand. I did buy this and this. I tried a bunch of different tools to kind of get what this does. I tried like old makeup brushes. I tried a bunch of different things, and they're just, I have just not found anything to be as effective as this. This is really running out. I wonder if I could add a few drops of water. What do you do to like spruce these up? Do you guys know? Do you just add some water? Maybe. Does it feel dry? Doesn't feel dry. You just buy a new one. That's the answer. It's running out of ink. Okay. Yay. Okay. Well, we have a bunch of these now. Yay, that's fabulous. I like doing things in batches. But then I kind of forget that I've made them. Like I have like bins of things that I've made like this, and then I forget that I have them and don't, and then I don't use them. But these I think I'm gonna put in every single book that I make, because again, it brings up all that nostalgia from my own childhood of writing my name on the library card. Some of these are really tall. I think they're fine. This one I think is tall. Can I cut off something at the bottom? I think it's probably fine. All right, well, thanks for letting me talk to you about my family's medical history. Y'all, I don't know why you stayed on this video, but if you did, you are welcome, I guess. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.